little later. Let's talk about let's talk about the actual necessity and why meditation, or what is the genesis of meditation, how it can help, how does it work actually inside us, how does it do. So I'll do some pictorial this thing. Let's see how we can understand this concept very nicely. Actually, it's a very good question, because many of us, as you rightly said, we hear about meditation a lot in the media. Right? It's just the buzzword. Right? Everywhere people are talking about it. And mindfulness, another thing which people embrace it more because there is no strings attached. Right? You don't have to, you just follow mindfulness. You don't have to follow necessarily a religious belief, and people think that's safer, and let me do this, and they do it. But mindfulness actually stems out of the Vedic philosophy of what real meditation is. It's a byproduct of it. If the byproduct itself is so tempting, imagine what if you know what the actual meditation can do to us. So I'll take you through some graphical this thing. Please feel free to stop me if you feel there is any questions, but it applies to every one of you. So let's say, what is this meditation and why meditation is necessary? To understand this, actually our Vedic philosophy is very deep, very profound, and they are extremely practical and relevant. Had it been deep and profound but has no relevance to me, it's of no use. I can just appreciate that, okay, nice mountain or nice this thing, but that mountain has got nothing to do in my life. But on the contrary, this Vedic knowledge is very relevant to me, very, very applicable. That's the beauty, because this Sanatana Dharma is a way of life. And when we bring these small changes in our life, we see the practical benefits in ourselves. So let's see how the meditation can help, and what are the types of meditation, why some of the meditation methods are difficult compared to the other ones, what we can try. I would not say do this or do that. You see for yourself. There are types of meditations, and I would say what are the pros and cons of various meditations, and from that you can decide for yourself which is the best thing. And then we will talk about my journey of doing meditation, how it has helped, or whatever. Talk about that as well. So the first thing that I want to talk about before we go to meditation is something called the definition of happiness. And this is a very central or pivotal point, because all our life we are interested in having happiness in life. We want to be at a happier state. The reason why you chose to come here, deep within some corner, you know, if you attend here, it will make you more peaceful or happier. That is the simple fact or reason why every action that we do, there is an inherent assumption, if I do it, it will make me happier. Right? Now let me ask you, because we have to have some interaction. What is the common understanding that you have about happiness? What do you think is the definition of happiness? What is happiness to you? Let's not talk too philosophical. When do you feel happy, generally?
I want something and I got it.
Okay, I want something, I got it. Fair enough. So what is that something, do you know? Okay, even if you don't know.
Any desire.
Any desire. Okay. There is a desire, and the fulfillment of that desire, is leading to happiness. This is what is the definition that you have. Is it a good definition? In fair definition, right? So what he said is desire. I want something. I want something. Now what the Vedic literature says, this is the common understanding which most of us have living in this material world, and they say it is not true. The reason is the happiness does not lie in anything outside. There is no happiness outside. I think, what is this? No happiness outside? Yes, because this is all material object. Matter cannot give happiness to spirit soul. We are intrinsically soul, and if you are thinking what this spirit soul is, the characteristic of spirit soul is Sat, Chit and Ananda. Sat, Chit and Ananda. Pay attention to these things. It will make a lot of tons of sense in your life when you move on with your life and want to do something and practice these things. It will immensely help you, because these concepts are very profound and very relevant. So the characteristics or the fundamental nature of spirit soul is Sat, Chit and Ananda. That is what is our fundamental nature. That is why everybody wants to live here in this material world permanently. Nobody thinks 30 years, 29 years, 32 years. We don't think like that. When we plan in our life, as if I'm going to live happily ever after. That's the plan. Why? Because the nature of soul is Sat. Even if I am suffering with some chronic disease, some problems, I still don't think that I'm going to die. Maybe people around me are dying. Maybe people they have got some problems and they have left the world. That's good or bad for them. I'm going to survive here. That's a very deep, strong belief. And that is not wrong, because that is what is the fundamental nature of the spirit soul. And we are all seeking knowledge. Various knowledge we want to acquire. No matter whether you are here in this school or in some other school or in some part of your life, still you want to acquire knowledge, different knowledge. I want to enhance my skills. I want to enhance my knowledge about the understanding of this material world. That is the characteristic of Chit. Chit means knowledge. So Sat, Chit and Ananda. Ananda means we are actually inherently blissful. The bliss lies within us. Bliss does not lie in outside object or position. We think if I get that position is going to give me happiness. But it is not true. Had that been the case, probably the person who has achieved the highest position, maybe it is the post of the president of this country, or the CEO of a company, they would have been happy. They would have been perfectly happy. There should not be any dearth of happiness within in those people. But it is not true. It's a fact. It is not true. Why it is? So our constitutional position is Ananda. We actually are internally, we are filled with Ananda. But there is something which happens in the equation. I'll show you, and that's a very powerful thing. Why that happiness we are not able to experience? We will see that. But the fundamental understanding which people have, if I desire something, if I want something, and if I get that, I will be happy. True, you will experience happiness, but that experience of happiness does not last long. It's a momentary experience, it's a fleeting experience. There is a beginning and an end of that experience, and it doesn't last long. So the reason why it is happening and why this is a myth is because our constitutional position is Ananda, and in this matter, in this material world, there is no happiness. So if that is the fundamental thing, in the Vedic literature, they give the example of a musk deer. A musk deer has got in its body, inside it, the fragrance is coming out of the body itself. The musk lies within, but that fragrance of musk is so intoxicating for the musk deer that it is searching outside. Where is it coming from? Where is it coming from? And it is wandering in the forest everywhere, trying to find that happiness, that fragrance, that smell. But little does it know that it is lying within. Same holds true for all of us. That we are seeking happiness in everything, in this object, in that, in that position, in this thing, in outside we are seeking for that. But little do we realize that the happiness lies within us. That's the first thing which we have to understand. If that is the thing, so how do we experience the happiness? Or what happens when somebody is desiring and that desire gets fulfilled? How do we experience that happiness? Very interestingly, the Vedic literature say that when we get something that we are looking for and we obtain that, it brings our mind to a state of absorption. The definition of happiness as given in the Vedic literature is when our mind is in the state of absorption, we experience happiness. I will explain this with an example. State of absorption of mind. So let's say, for example, do you know samosas?
Yep.
Yeah, good. So there were some students who were visiting us yesterday from a church, from a Sunday school of a church to the temple. Very curious. So we, spoke a little bit about our philosophy. We took them around our temple, and then we made them chant and dance. But the thing that they enjoyed the most was eating samosas. We had the prasadam as samosas. So now imagine, assuming that all of you love samosas, okay, and have got like a tray full of samosas, and I ask, here you are, you want samosa? You're also hungry. So the first time when you look at that samosa, hot, the steaming samosa, it is there right in front of you. The fragrance is coming. It's it's mouth watering, and you're waiting. Cup. When is he going to give me? Right? You give it, and then you have it in your hand. Wow! Finally, I got this samosa, which I was desiring to have it so long time. I've not seen such a nice samosa. And you took a bite. It just melts in your mouth. The ingredients are so well prepared and so well mixed, the right proportion, right spices, and you just relish it, right? Then you had one more bite and you are enjoying it, oh yummy, and then you finish that, and then I am offering you one more, please take. 2 more, 3 more, 4 more, 5 more, 10 more, 11 more, 12 more. After that you will say stop. Thank you so much, but I really can't take it anymore. What happens? Actually, an intelligent person should question and see from the angle that the Vedic scriptures want us to see. Have your taste buds changed in the 11th samosa when you are taking? Is the samosa, the 11th one that you are eating, is it any different from the first one? Is it, the ingredients are not the same, it is not any more hot? What is it that is happening? What the Vedic scriptures tell us is, the first samosa, when we had it in our plate, when it was given to us, it had the power to bring that mind to state of absorption, momentarily. Mind got absorbed in that. That is why I experienced happiness. When it comes to the 11th samosa, my mind is now, it's distracted, it is gone, it is no more absorbed. Hence, I am not experiencing happiness. I'll give you another example. Actually, when I was doing my engineering, our college was located right on the banks of Ganges. And even those days, it's in Allahabad, it's in the northern India, right? So, beautiful place, and there were hot samosas there as well. Allahabad is famous for samosas. So, I used to go and eat samosas. All of us, we used to go in the evening, in the afternoon, and we used to take samosas. And the samosa, the person had the shop right next to Ganges. So me and my friend, we were enjoying samosas. He has taken a bite and I have taken a bite, and then we are saying how nice the breeze is blowing, and how nice this person has made. The spices are just perfect, the ingredients are just nice and so hot and so mouth-watering, and we were just enjoying. That time, all of a sudden, there is another person who comes, a friend of ours, and he says the results are out. And he says the person who was sitting next to me flunked in one of the exams. Samosa in his hand is still the same. Okay? The breeze is still blowing the same way, pleasant breeze. The ingredients and the spices in the samosa are still the same. He's not able to relish anymore. Had there been really happiness in that samosa, irrespective of what happens, I could have enjoyed that samosa. It is now the mind which is, it is distracted. It is not in the state of absorption. Hence, is not able to experience happiness. So, if you have understood that one concept, then you will be interested to know what I can do so that the mind comes to the state of absorption, and that's where meditation plays a big role. Let's see a little bit of analysis of this. So we have to understand our interaction in this material world. I talked about this earlier, but still it's always good to refresh our memories. So we are spirit soul, and we are interacting with this material world. I told the characteristic of soul is Sat, Chit and Ananda. And the characteristic of material world is Asat, Achit and Nirananda. If there is any term that you don't understand, you can stop me. But Asat is non-permanent. This is temporary. It is constantly changing. Look around you. Look within yourself. Everything in our life is changing. Right? Our cells in the body constantly changes. In every 7 years, the entire cells in our body completely changes. The seasons are changing. There is day and night which is constantly coming. The time is changing. There is blood flow which is happening in our body. It's always in a constant state of flux. It's always something going on around us. So that's why they say change is the only permanent thing in life. Right? It's constantly changing. Everything is temporary here. And Achit means it's full of ignorance, this material world. And there is no happiness in this material world. Now imagine if this soul has to interact with this material world, and if you look at their characteristics, there is nothing in common between them. So it's a situation where imagine, Parul, you speak Spanish and I speak Hindi, and we both have to interact. It's hard, right? So what is the way out? So what the Vedic scriptures are, if you use your common sense, you need to have an interpreter who understands both Spanish as well as Hindi, right? So in that way, whatever I am communicating, she can communicate to you, and what you want to communicate, she can communicate back to me. So that role of interface is played by something called mind inside us. So since the role of interface is played by mind has the characteristics of both the soul as well as that of the material world. So it has got the state of Sat, permanency, or it has got the state of Asat, which is temporary. So what happens is, when the mind is too much towards the material world, then it is constantly agitated, it is constantly disturbed. We are constantly subjecting it to so many fluctuations, vrittis and samskaras. We are disturbed. But when the mind is towards the spirit soul, then the mind is stable, spiritualized, Sat, permanent, calm, non-disturbed. So if that is the thing, if mind is the thing which is making this difference, whether we are experiencing a lot of disturbance or turbulence in life, or whether we are experiencing permanence or peace or quietude in our life, we should know how we can bring the mind to the state of permanence. What meditation does is, it brings the mind to the state of absorption. This is where meditation plays a big role. It brings the mind to the side of the soul, or the side of Sat, or it makes the mind spiritualized. Spiritual mind is the mind where you are constantly experiencing state of absorption. That is why the sages in earlier days, they used to go to the forest. They will be sitting. They'll be penniless. They have got no money. They are pauper. They are experiencing very high amount of bliss within. They don't need anything. If you are really, you don't want to make a show. You don't want to show it to the world. You genuinely want to experience that bliss. Bring your mind to the state of absorption. You don't need anything external to experience that happiness. And meditation helps in bringing that mind to the state of absorption. The question then comes is, what are the types of meditation? And are you all there so far? Is it okay? Okay. So now we will see what are the types of meditation. I will briefly talk about that. But there is another concept which I wanted to introduce. We will see that. First, let's see what are the types of meditations and what are the difficulties in practicing meditation. Meditation types. And why we experience disturbance where the mind is not able to come to the state of calmness, though we want that to achieve. So there are basically two kinds of meditations. One is called the classical meditation, and the other one is called the devotional meditation. broadly they can be classified into these two categories. Under this classical meditation, you can have, sitting in one place, crisscrossed, focusing on something which is abstract, or on a light, or on some object, and things like that. That is the classical meditation, which can have various subcategories. Devotional meditation is the form where we practice something called mantra meditation. The question that one should ask is there any difference between these two? And if yes, which is superior compared to the other one? And why one is superior or inferior compared to the other one? Very simple thing, very nice thing, and it is very nicely explained also in our Vedic scriptures. So this classical meditation, if I have to give you an example how to understand this classical meditation, you know how iron ore is extracted, iron is extracted from iron ore? No idea? It's very simple. I mean, they will have a furnace, and this furnace is subjected to a lot of heat from within, from outside, and there will be iron ore here, and the impurities in the iron ore, they become, there's something called slag, which gets formed and deposited on the top, and first that slag is removed because it melts first. And it comes over here, and with a tray this is removed, and then whatever remains, that is the pure iron. This is how the iron ore is extracted. The method of classical meditation, where you are trying to meditate and bring your mind to the state of absorption, is something which is compared to this classical method, is compared to this iron ore extraction, where you are subjecting a lot of heat, where you have to do a lot of austerity. Somehow, my senses are going here and there, mind wants to wander, I have to bring that mind to control, and once the mind is controlled, then I can achieve that state of absorption, or the mind is in the state of calmness. It is a lot of difficulty in that. Even if you're trying to focus on some object and try to meditate, or focus on some light or an abstract thing, you are relying on your own energy, you are relying on your own efforts, you are relying on your own strength, which is always difficult because we are already in the state of this turbulence, or we are always towards this material world, and it is very difficult. But there is another one, there is a very powerful method, there is another way that we can extract iron from the impurities. Imagine there are iron particles here, and along with the iron particles there are some impurities which are mixed. Right? There are some impurities which are there inside this, and if you have to segregate these iron particles from these impurities, you bring a huge magnet. Okay, this is a magnet, and when you bring this magnet, automatically the iron particles get attracted and the impurities remain. Here you are not relying on your own strength, but you are relying on the power of magnet. And mind you, the iron particles are naturally drawn, are attracted to the magnet. Similarly, we are actually naturally drawn to that spiritual energy. Like you were experiencing something when you went in the morning at 6 o'clock to that temple. We are naturally drawn to that. So if we can imbibe that divine energy, if somehow we can harness on that divine energy in our life, we will naturally come to the state of absorption. Here we are not relying on our own strength, but we are relying on the divine energy. So what happens is, when we take the help of mantra meditation, mantra is like a powerful magnet. And that powerful magnet, when we bring it in our life, the mind which is now mixed with all the impurities, distractions, thoughts and all, naturally mind gets attracted to that mantra, because mantra is a good representation of the divine energy. Very good, very powerful representation. So it helps. I mean, you can try it for yourself and see how this is superior to the other one. This is in nutshell about meditation. There are some challenges about meditations. We can talk about that. But I'll pause and see if you have any questions and thoughts or reflections. If not, I'll talk something more powerful, more fundamental about our own life, and how we get into this loop, or this cycle where the distractions keep coming in our life without our wanting them, and how those distractions disturb our life. We'll talk about that. Let's see if you have any thoughts or comments or anything.
One comment I had, so I've mainly just done classical meditation, focusing on the breath. For mantra meditation, what mantras are there to choose from? Because I imagine
Okay,
there's.
that's also a good question. Okay, is that the okay? So the mantras, they are of actually the word mantra has got two parts of it, man and tra. Man is our mind, tra which can deliver or control the mind. So mind you, your mind is so subtle. Anything which is subtle cannot be controlled by gross ways. So let's say, for example, imagine if I ask you to break a mountain, to break the mountain to bring it to pieces, and I give you a hammer. Maybe it will take time, but you will be able to break the mountain with the help of the hammer, because the hammer is subtler than mountain. But if I give you the mountain and ask you that you break all the bacteria in your body, you can't do it, because the hammer actually cannot do, because bacteria are subtle. You can't touch it, but they are there and they are harming us. So if something which is subtle, if it has to be controlled, you need a technique which is subtler than the object. If you give a gross thing like the hammer and you want to control your bacteria, it will not work. Now mind is subtler than our body, because I can't see it. I know my mind is there, it troubles me, but I'm not able to perceive or control or clean or do anything. Mantra is subtler than mind, and that is how mantra is able to control this mind. So the question that you had is there any different kinds of mantras, or what is the which mantra to be practiced, or something like that?
Yeah.
Primarily there are two types of mantras. The one type of mantra, the first kind of mantras, are those which are practiced or chanted in the mood of awe and reverence. So you would have at least seen something in TVs or somewhere where people chant different kinds of mantras with different meters. Like, they do this kind of hands, Om Purnamadaha, Purnamida, Purnamada. So they chant this mantra with a particular meter. Those mantras can be chanted at a specific time, in a specific way, for a specific purpose. They are not general mantras which can be chanted anytime, anywhere, by anybody. You have to be qualified to chant that mantra. So you must be a Brahmana. Not just because you are wearing a thread or because you are born in a family of Brahmana, but you need to have that Brahminical qualification to chant those mantras properly. Then only they will give the desired results. They usually are chanted when you are doing some yajnas or oblations and things like that. There is another kind of mantra where this mantra is chanted in the mood of intimacy, in the mood of closeness, in the mood of love and affection to the Lord. It is not awe and reverence, but it is with love. There is a lot of feelings, emotions attached with this. And these mantras can be chanted anywhere by anybody without any qualifications, without any particular meter, without any rules and regulations. And that is what we do when we chant. I was mentioning in the morning 2 hours, a mantra which is recommended in one of the scriptures in the Vedas called Kali Santarana Upanishad. Kali Santarana Upanishad. And that is the recommendation for this yuga. This yuga is called the age of quarrel, age of disbelief, age of faithlessness, age of restlessness. This is called age of, this is the age of Kali. This is why we are the product of this. So in this age, if we really want to achieve that state of absorption, or we want to experience happiness, or we want to experience bliss, then we have to take up to this mantra which is given in this Kali Santarana Upanishad. Kali Santarana, Santarana is to swim across this ocean of Kali. The mantra is called the Maha Mantra, which we will talk about it. But the mantra I can write it, I don't know if you can see it, but it is Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, 16-word mantra which is given in this Kali Santarana Upanishad. And the Upanishad says, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Iti Sodasam Namnam Kali Kalmasanasanam Natoh Parataram Upaya Sarva Vedeshu Drishyate. After going through the entire Vedic literatures, this is the conclusion that this 16-word mantra can deliver one from the nations of this Kali Yuga. This is what we practice. Anyway, that is the answer to your question. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts, questions? Fully lost.
I just recall the answer to the happiness
Ah.
is the state of unwavering minds.
State of?
Unwavering minds.
Unwavering mind. Yeah, we had discussed this earlier. Yeah. There is a recent research which is done by Microsoft where they say that the average attention span of human being is
2 seconds.
The-
5 minutes. Take a guess.
Very short time.
But how?
How short?
3, 5 seconds, 3 seconds.
3 seconds, 5 seconds.
7 to 9.
They say it has gone down compared to that of a goldfish. Goldfish attention span is 9 seconds. Human beings attention span is 8 seconds. Average human beings attention span. That means in every 8 seconds, you would have wandered somewhere and come back. Something okay. So it's the characteristic of this Kali Yuga. We are very distracted, disturbed, and yet we don't have any faith in the process of the system that is recommended in the Vedic literature. But interesting thing is we have hope. We are not. It's not a hopeless situation where we can't come out. But the challenge lies in implementing and applying that in our lives. We don't do that.
Prabhu, will that doing meditation increase the attention span? We can cross the goal space.
You try it out. And if I say yes, you may not believe it, but you should try. It definitely will increase. Very powerful. As I said, this is a subtle thing. To work on the subtle thing, you need things which is subtler than that. You can't work on a gross way. You can't sit in a place, abhi mind, I'll not spare my mind, I'll tight and I'll give it some tight dose and then the mind will be controlled. Cannot be. Had that been so easy, people who are suffering or who are going through depression or anxieties and things like that, they could have helped themselves and could have become better. They struggle. One of the reasons which I wanted to tell you. Okay, any other thoughts? Then before that, before I tell you something very interesting which will help you always in your life, in your understanding the way you live your life. That is related to our dealings in this material world. Any other thoughts? Any questions? Anybody else? Okay. Usually you ask questions, people are silent. But then when you ask, what did we discuss in the last session? Do you remember anything? Everything discussed was good. Everything was very nice. Don't ask us what we discussed. Right? This is just for our, I would strongly recommend, make a note of it somewhere and keep it permanently. Wherever you are, it will help you. It's an understanding of our inner life, inner self, and how less cognizant we are or how ignorant we are about our inner self. So, I was talking about the fundamental characteristic of spirit soul. The characteristic of spirit soul is Sat Chit and Ananda. Now we will do a graphical representation of what happens, how we get stuck in different loops in our life and how we develop some bad habits and we become slaves to these bad habits. And if we understand this, it will help us to come out of this. How the yogis, they practice something very powerful and which is there within our reach. We can also do this. So the spirit soul is Satchit and Ananda. It is deep within the inherent characteristic of the soul, inherent nature of ours, each one of us, is we are full of bliss. Deep within ourselves, we are full of bliss. But why we are not experiencing that? What is the problem? So imagine your spirit soul to be like a light bulb, a white bulb which is emitting bliss. Okay, like the light is coming out of the bulb, so the spirit soul is emitting something called bliss. Okay. Now what is happening is, when the soul comes in contact with the material body, the first covering that comes is the covering of false ego. False ego is something which is making us believe, it's giving us an identity. So you get an identity from the covering of the false ego. When the false ego covers the spirit soul, we think we are human beings. We think we are South Indians. We think we are North Indians. We think we are Americans. We think we are Africans. We get an identity, like let's say identity which is like a human identity. I got a human being identity because of this covering of false ego. So when this bliss passes through the covering of false ego, this bliss actually converts to a desire. This is the beginning of desire. Because of the covering which is coming, I am considering myself to be a human being, so I am developing a desire which is also a specific one, a humanly desire. A humanly desire. So I want to enjoy, something like that. I want to enjoy by eating. So you that kind of a desire, so the bliss gets transformed to a desire, and I start craving. I develop a desire that this is how I can enjoy in this material world. When this desire passes through the next covering, which is our mind and intelligence, then the desire actually gets a shape. So the desire gets a shape or a form. So first the covering of false ego, which gives us an identity. The bliss converts to a desire. Now this desire, when it passes through the covering of mind and intelligence, the desire gets a shape or form. I want to enjoy a chocolate cake. The moment I desire like that, there is somebody who is acting here, who is sanctioning this. Now this is a very important thing. Imagine you go to Turkey, okay, and you want to express your desire that you want to eat paratha. So, but you don't know the language that they speak in Turkey. So you have to, if you have to say, I want to eat paratha, मैं paratha khana chahta hu. Who will understand you? You need to have someone who understands your language and also can communicate that to the person who is there, over there. So there is someone who is accompanying each one of us in our life, in our heart, and that is the Lord in the heart, who is called the Super Soul or the Paramatma. He is seated in our heart and he is cognizant of each one of our desires. Super Soul or Paramatma, so he sees the desire, and based on that desire, he actually sanctions. And when he sanctions, the action is done by material nature or Prakriti. I'll explain all these things, just bear with me for a while. And this is how the action is formed. Action is done. Now when the action is done, one pivotal thing which we have to understand is the Super Soul, when he is sanctioning, he actually sees an account of our karmic samskaras. So he checks here. There is an account, karmic account, of our samskaras or impressions. He checks it and he sees if we have the credit, then he sanctions it, and the material nature or Prakriti is doing the action. But when you do an action, every action has got a every action has got what? Reaction. And the reaction comes in the form of impression. And the impression gets stored here in the account of our karmic account. It's a very important thing to understand. So basically what happens is, imagine there is let's take an example and understand this. a person develops a desire from somewhere here. He develops a desire that let me steal. Okay? So he develops a desire, let me steal. So when that desire comes here to super soul to check, the super soul sees, okay, this person has got body, he's got his hands, legs, everything, mind, senses, everything working. He wants to steal, okay, he can steal. So he allows him to steal. Then the body, like our hands, legs, we engage them to do the act of stealing. Material nature or Prakriti is actually a combination of all our material bodies, the pranic Sakti that we have, it's a combination of that, which is actually doing the action. So now one may question, if Super Soul or the Lord is seated in our heart, why is he not preventing one to do that wrong action? Why is it that the Lord is allowing us to do it? Now mind you, the role of Super Soul is, it is just Anumanta and Upadrashta. It sees, it understands the desire, and it sanctions based on the karmic account. So it is like, suppose you go to a bank account and there is a cashier who's sitting there, and you ask him, can I get some $100? He will check your account. He sees that it has got $1,000. He can give $100. He will not ask you this question whether you are going to use it in a constructive way or a destructive way. He doesn't want to do that. He sees whether you have money. Yes, you have money. More than $100? Yes, more than $100. Sanctioned. That is what the Super Soul does. And that is how the sanctioning happens. And once the sanctioning is happening, the action is performed by material nature or Prakriti. So the Vedic literatures say that when we do any action, and mind you, okay, before I go there, so what happens is, now initially if you remember, the desire came here because of the covering of this false ego. That is where the bliss got transformed to desire, and then it got a shape or form in our mind or intelligence, and then it got sanctioned by Super Soul, and then the material nature did the action, right? Now, when the impression comes, or the reaction or the feedback comes and gets stored in the form of another impression, what it does is, it produces another desire from here. Where, it says, it is good because of this impressions, somewhere in your mind, you don't want this, but a desire comes, stealing is good. I could get away with stealing. Stealing was after all nice because I got some money. With that money, I can enjoy. This is how any habits get formed. The desire which was originally coming from the soul because of the covering of false ego is no more coming. Now there is another loop which has been created here, and a person constantly keeps doing some bad things or whatever it is. He becomes a slave of his bad habits. So the Vedic literatures tell that there are three kinds of doers. When you do any action, there are three doers. The first doer is the soul, who is desiring, because the desire is the function of the soul. So this is the desiring doer. Pay attention to this because this is related to our meditation and how it can help. First is desiring doer. The second one is sanctioning doer. And the third one is the executing doer. Now imagine if somebody is put behind the bars because of stealing, he's caught, and he says, well, I just executed, right? But really it was sanctioned by the Super Soul. So I am not to be blamed. The Super Soul has to be blamed because he sanctioned. Do you think it's the right logic?
Yeah.
Why not?
Because super sanction didn't allow you to.
Super Soul only sanctioned, no. Without the sanction of Super Soul, I would have not done. So why are you putting me behind the bars? What do you think? What is the answer?
You're the doer.
Huh?
Because you are executing it.
I just executed. I'm not the person to be blamed, no. It was sanctioned by someone. So because it was sanctioned by the Super Soul, I did it. So hence I am not supposed to be blamed. The Super Soul has to be blamed. What do you think?
Tricky.
Yeah, that's why you have to pay attention. What do you think, Priyavrata? Postdoc brain, some more churning thoughts. You didn't, I mean, you just did it. But real sanctioning has been done by the Super Soul, the Lord who seated in our heart. So should I blame the Super Soul? Yeah.
If we accept the Super Soul operates not on sort of thinking. It's just checking if it's allowable, then it's allowable. It's
You're there, you're
basic
there.
principles.
Very close, okay?
But who desires it?
Where does the desire come from?